Mr Chairman, I just want to take a few minutes to answer a couple of the questions that have been posed and talk to a couple of points. So first of all, I understand that Charles Chauvel, prior to my coming into the House, asked the question around public service requirements applying to private contractors, in this instance Serco, and will they be required? Well, the answer is, of course, yes. And I refer members to Section 119 of the Corrections Act. I have to state the obvious, really, that prisoners are still covered by the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. Actually, the State Sector Act still applies to our staff, so things around equal employment, all of those still apply. And, of course, the Ombudsman. We have this optional protocol, OPCANT, where the Ombudsman is able to go in and have a look at anything in any prison at any time, and that will still apply whether it's a privately contracted prison or not. And finally, and I think perhaps one of the most important features, is that the Minister of Corrections is still accountable to this House for the operations. And as Minister, I still hold the Chief Executive of Corrections accountable for the workings of those prisons, so that he may well delegate powers out to a private provider, but I still hold him accountable for the results. And therefore, as Minister, I'm able to be held accountable by this House for the operations of that prison. I think that's a very important part of the private contracting arrangements. I would make the point that there's been some outrageous statements made in this House tonight, actually, about Serco. Fortunately, none of them would ever be made outside the House, I think, because they'd be up in court. But in fact, if you look at the operations of Serco in corrections, as I have both in Australia and UK, some of the top performing prisons for rehabilitation have been run by Serco. Some of the top performing prisons who are getting the best results for their prisoners in rehabilitation have been run by Serco. Now, yep, they had a really bad year last year, and I held our Corrections Department's feet to the fire to make sure that we got that prison operating well, and I'm very pleased to inform the House that, in fact, they are meeting about 95% of the performance stats that we hold them, performance measures that we hold them to account for, and I expect that will continue. That is my expectation as Minister. I'd also say to all members in the House, but particularly to the opposition, who I'm sure will be very interested in it, that we are working very hard to develop some tables of performance that will enable us to compare the performance of all our prisons across New Zealand, and that will be made public. That's not an easy thing to do, because each prison has different characteristics, deals with different types of prisoners, and the Mount Eden prison, contrary to what was said in this House tonight, even though it might have been newly designed, is not an easy prison to run, simply because of the large number of remand prisoners who are largely short-term prisoners who are in and out. It's not an easy prison to run, and I think that Serco have finally started to do a pretty good job there. The other thing about getting private contractors or different people to come in and run any operation brings in a wealth of new ideas, and some of them are effective and some of them are not. But actually, you've got an opportunity to have a look at how some things can be done differently. And I have to say, and I say to any member of in this House who is interested, go and have a look at that Mount Eden prison and what they're doing around those prisoners that are at risk of self-harm. They are trialling something that is quite different from the way we have traditionally dealt with those people who are, extremely vulnerable people. And to date, touch wood, they are having really good success. And we are learning from their methods and what they are doing. And that's one of the major benefits of having a different way of operating available to us and to this government. And of course, if you look at the new Wiri contract, That is a contract that is not about, Mr Chairman.
Honourable Anne Tolley.
Thank you. That is not about a sausage factory. This is a cutting-edge contract that is entirely results-focused. So that operator cannot have a sausage-type factory. It is not in their interest to keep prisoners there. They will get rewards if they successfully rehabilitate and reintegrate prisoners back into our communities. And the role of the Corrections Service certainly is to keep its communities safe, and the best way that it can do that is to make sure that that turnover, that churn of prisoners going back out into the community and committing crimes again for all the reasons that we in this House know: drug and alcohol addiction, life and a background of violence being the norm, poor educational qualifications, no skills. 50% of our prisoners come in not from employment. So many of them have never had a job in their lives. We have an obligation to deal with all of those things, and the way we can keep our communities safe is to make sure that when they go out, they have the best opportunity to get gainful employment and look after their families and lead a sensible and successful life that doesn't include prison. So I'm open to any ideas, and I have to say to the opposition and to Mr Chevelle, consultation goes both ways. I opened my door and talked to you, made you the offer to come and talk to me about things like strip searching. I said, come and tell me your ideas. I am open to those ideas, not a telephone call. You sat in my office.
You can't request it, Charles.
Yep, sat in my office. Consultation is about a communication both ways. It's not just going out and putting your ideas out and say, what do you think of that? There has to be a response, and I got none. So it's all very well to come into the House and make speeches, and after it's been right through the select committee stage and make speeches, but actually the opportunity was given and not taken. So, Mr Chairman, those are the points that I wanted to make about the questions that have been raised. First of all, public service requirements will apply to Serco and do apply, and the Minister is accountable for the performance. And I think that is the ultimate response for this House to take advantage of.
David Clendon.
Mr Chair. Mr Chair, it's been